Welcome to today's Explainer. We're tackling something pretty much every homeowner is going to face at some point, but honestly, very few actually get it right. We are talking about preparing a house for the market. Today, we're going to fundamentally shift how you look at your own living space. It's about moving away from what we call a seller's mindset and strictly adopting a buyer's mindset. It sounds super simple, right? But believe me, the difference between those two perspectives can literally cost you thousands of dollars, not to mention months of lost time. Let's see exactly how.
Okay, let's dive into this. What actually kills a home sale? Most sellers instantly jump to the absolute worst-case scenarios. They're sweating over massive structural flaws, a crumbling foundation, or maybe some unexpected zoning change. But when you look at the data, the reality is totally different. It's almost never those massive, unavoidable disasters that tank a deal. Instead, the real culprits? They're small, highly visible, and totally fixable distractions. It's all those little things that just slowly chip away at a buyer's confidence.
To really get how this works, we need to take a chronological walkthrough, exactly the way a potential buyer would. And that whole experience kicks off with the walk-up. See, a buyer's emotional baseline isn't established in your gorgeous living room or your newly tiled kitchen. No, it's established right there at the curb, way before their hand even touches the front doorknob. The showing has literally already started the second they pull their car into the driveway. If they feel uneasy walking up the path to the house, they're going to carry that exact same unease right through the front door.
Let's think about some specific exterior red flags. Overgrown landscaping, a worn-out deck, peeling paint, dirty walkways, or just general clutter outside. Now, do any of these mean the house is structurally unsound? Of course not, but they instantly create a negative first impression. They're basically broadcasting to the buyer that the home hasn't been cared for. So before they've even had a chance to see your beautiful kitchen, they're already playing defense, all because of a wheat-filled flower bed or a messy porch.
All right, now let's transition into the interior. When a buyer steps across that threshold, they aren't just calculating square footage or deciding if they like your choice of light fixtures. What they're doing is actively searching for reasons to feel secure about making an offer. Buying a home is a massive financial commitment. It's scary. They want to feel confident, so their brain is constantly scanning the environment for absolutely anything that might threaten that confidence.
And that brings us to the interior deal breakers. Imagine you're walking through a house. First, you notice a water stain on the ceiling. Then there's a faint, musty odor in the hallway. You look down and see some really questionable DIY repairs on the baseboards, maybe some weird electrical wiring, or an obviously aging HVAC system. When a buyer gets hit with this rapid-fire succession of minor defects, well, it simulates a feeling of pure overwhelm. Suddenly, the house stops feeling like a sanctuary and starts feeling like a trap.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the psychology behind this specific thought. If I can see this, what can't I see? This right here is a huge psychological turning point for the buyer. When they spot a visible cosmetic issue, like a badly patched hole in the drywall or a faint water ring, it instantly triggers this deep, irrational fear of hidden structural damage. They completely stop looking at the home's potential. Instead, they start obsessing over all the hidden dangers that might be lurking behind the walls.
Think of it like the iceberg psychology of home buying. You, as the seller, know for a fact that the water stain on the ceiling is just from a bathtub that overflowed 3 years ago and was completely fixed. To you, it's just a minor cosmetic blemish. But to the buyer, that stain is just the tip of the iceberg. Beneath the surface, their imagination is running totally wild. They're generating outsized doubt about toxic mold, rotting wood, a failing roof, you name it. A tiny aesthetic flaw just transformed into massive structural anxiety.
So, the crucial point is how this psychological doubt directly translates into real, tangible financial consequences for you. Buyer doubt immediately leads to lower offers because they want a discount to cover all that perceived risk. That lower offer leads to longer, way more aggressive inspection requests, which then forces tougher, highly stressful negotiations, and ultimately your home just ends up sitting for more time on the market. The whole shebang, all because of a few tiny, unaddressed issues.
But hey, it isn't just about repairs. We also have to talk about decor, which brings us to the personalization trap. Look, while you're actually living in a home, it should absolutely reflect your personality. But when you're trying to sell, your beloved, highly customized style can actually become a huge barrier. It actively blocks a prospective buyer from being able to envision their own family, their own furniture, and their own life in that exact same space.
Step into the buyer's shoes for just a second and contrast these two mindsets. Living in your home means bold paint colors, super custom finishes. Maybe you even took out all the bathtubs to build giant walk-in showers, or added heavy drapes that accidentally block out the natural light. But selling your home is a totally different game. It requires simple, neutral updates, a blank canvas. You have to transition your property from a highly customized, lived-in space into a neutralized product that has broad market appeal.
Now, actually, scratch that. Let me be very clear about our objective here. The goal is absolutely not perfection. You do not need to do a massive gut renovation on a perfectly functional kitchen just to sell your house. Your objective is simply to eliminate unnecessary distractions. You're just trying to remove any reason for a buyer to pause, hesitate, or second-guess their decision. You want a neutral, well-maintained environment where their own imagination can just take over.
And this brilliantly illustrates why putting in a little work up front is so incredibly vital. Preparation really pays off. By taking the time, maybe through a quick professional pre-listing consultation, to figure out exactly which repairs are worth making and which ones you can skip, you set yourself up for success. You pretty much guarantee better first impressions. And that buyer confidence? It leads directly to stronger offers, way smoother inspections with fewer red flags, and ultimately, a much faster, less stressful sale.
Which brings us to this final thought to chew on as we wrap up today's explainer. I want you to take a hard look at your property through a total stranger's eyes and ask yourself, are you selling a home or are you just selling your own distractions? Because if you can clear away the clutter, neutralize the space, and fix those tiny deal breakers, you aren't just selling a piece of real estate, you're selling confidence. And in the housing market, confidence is exactly what buyers are willing to pay top dollar for.